Welcome back, everybody, to the final install piece of the fuel cell part 2. What we did yesterday is we kind of talked about installing this extra 3/4 inch sheet of marine grade plywood. You can see it's all dry now, and what we've essentially done is we filled the edge. You can do this in a few different ways. You can actually grind off this 90-degree turn and make it super smooth to wrap it around. What I like to do is I use the epoxy thickening agent, this compound, to kind of create a bend, and it also, not only does it create a bend, it also acts kind of like a glue and kind of bonds it to the structure permanently. And then we wrap it with Kevlar, and that's what we've kind of done here. Tell you right now, it's bonded along the bottom, sides, and then of course we've got two mechanical I forgot what length they are, but anyway, they're stainless steel screws holding the top. So this is a pretty good bond. Let's move over to the second one over here, same side. Came out pretty darn good, nice and smooth, and like I said, we've put two screws here, and as we work over to the other side, you can kind of see the same. Whole point is to obviously make those connections where the fuel tank is going to be mounted to. You want to make them extra sturdy. I think we've kind of achieved that. The last thing to do before we set the fuel cell in, and I may do it afterwards with the brush, I'm not too worried about it, is you see the exposed pieces of marine grade plywood there. You want to come back with some epoxy and paint those. Basically, you don't want any kind of exposed wood to be around moisture, especially while it's under the floor. We've got a little bit over here. Wouldn't take much. You don't have to mix very much at all to finish this. So you got a few different ideas you can do. If you hadn't already painted it or sealed the wood off with the epoxy, now's your chance to go ahead and do that. Or you can set the fuel cell in and paint it afterwards. It's kind of up to you. I'm actually gonna, in my case, I'm gonna go ahead and set it in, get everything screwed into place, and then I'll come back in with a paintbrush, since it is just along the top. Yeah, it won't be a problem. Just a few spots right there. Alright, so that's going to be the plan here. And like I said, this is the best way to handle this. You could technically run a piece of 3/4 long ways against a stringer. Kind of up to you on how you want to do that, but this is more than enough. It'll be plenty rigid with a 1.5 inch worth of marine plywood there. I don't see this going anywhere, not at all. All right, so anyway, let's go ahead and set the fuel cell in, and we'll talk about the next piece. Another thing to mention is don't forget your neoprene at the bottom. Definitely don't want to forget that. So anyway, let's go ahead and set that fuel cell in here now. All right. So one of the things to notice, and maybe some of you saw it earlier in the video, maybe you didn't, but what I did was I had everything screwed into place and leveled up real good, and then I came to the conclusion that I'm definitely going to be running into a major problem if I try to overlook the obvious. So let's talk about what is and what was obvious when I had everything screwed in, and that's these little guys. That is a crack in the 90-degree piece of aluminum here, and sometimes if it's just one and you think, you know, this is from you got to read it backwards, but yeah, this is from December 1993, so I guess technically 94 if you want to round up. But anyway, this is how much the crack took to move since 1994. Not too bad, right? But then I saw this guy over here, and there's another crack. So those two took until 1994 to get that far. And then I went over here, just since I saw the other one, I said, oh shoot, there's a crack on that other side too. And then I saw this one. I said, well, there's 3 cracks, what am I gonna do? And then my eye focused over here, and of course you can see where the weld on this aluminum is cracked. And right there as well. So here's what you could do. You could seal this in the floor, cover it with marine grade plywood, seal the marine grade plywood with another layer of Kevlar on top, and forget that these cracks even exist, and you probably could get away with that. But what's going to happen, hopefully, not in the next year or two, those welds are more likely going to break and shear all the way across, at which point this fuel tank is just going to rest on the bottom of the boat and likely make a lot of rattling noises. May or may not be an issue. You may not even notice that. And then you're going to notice your fuel gauge isn't accurate, because at a level, as the boat is level, this fuel tank actually sits way too far forward, so it'll have more fuel in the front and less in the back, so it may appear at a rest that this fuel tank is near empty, when in fact it has a lot more in it. So what does that mean? Are we going to continue with installing it? The obvious answer in this case is no, we're not. What we're going to do is we'll have this sent off. I do welding myself, but I don't do a lot of aluminum. So likely what we'll see is we'll bring it over to a welding shop that does aluminum and kind of make the call. I mean, if it isn't going to hurt my feelings to have them weld on new 90-degree pieces of aluminum here, probably would be preferable. If they can TIG weld it and grind that out, that would probably be best. I know this weld right here is not going to be accessible from behind because it's cracked literally right here. So that's going to be kind of tough. So it's likely they're going to have to grind this off. So anyway, that's what the plan is. As you can see here, when you're doing your rebuild, keep that in mind as you're considering reusing old equipment. Because if it is cracked and is damaged and you're about to seal it permanently in the floor, do you really want to be able to consider this a truly good rebuild project when you know you have defective gear underneath the floor? The answer is no. So anyway, what I'll go ahead and do now is I'm actually going to take this off. I already made the screw holes in there, so that's, I guess, okay. But I am going to end up having this sent to a welding shop. Hopefully have it repaired tomorrow. On the video, it'll look like an instantaneous fix, which is good for you all. You don't have to wait. But like I said, we'll go ahead and get this fixed, and we will go ahead and reinstall this fuel tank back in the boat. All right. Take a look here. Look at these TIG welds that we just got done here. Next day, got the fuel tank back, TIG welded. The guy who welded this, take a look here. Here's his contact information if you need it. Big shout out to him, because I tell you what, I told him what this fuel tank was being used for and what made it crack before, and he went through and welded, TIG welded specifically he welded the cracks up, number one, which were just more of a cosmetic reason to do, because once you weld this piece underneath, this is where it gets its strength anyway, because this is constantly going to want to tear apart from the main fuel tank. And I tell you what, it ain't going to have no problems anymore. Look at this one up here. Fantastic job. If you know someone who can do TIG welding, fantastic. If not, try not to do a stick welder unless you have to go super cheap. But he did a fantastic job. Just one more plug here. You can see who did it. Give him a shout out if you need any TIG welding. I'm sure you can mail your products over to him and he'll fix it. But you can see here, he went and filled in all the cracks which is more for cosmetic reasons anyway, because this part of the clip really isn't being used anymore. Alright, look over there. And down here, we got all those filled in. I'm going to spin to this side. Man, I'm super excited. I like that. Looks super strong. I have a lot more confidence now when I put this in the floor that it's going to last than literally just depending on these welds here in the angle iron. So I think it was kind of a bad choice, but I guess for the manufacturing people who made this, you know, to them it was easier just do a weld here, than depend on this angle iron, aluminum iron if you would, to hold it. But really this is where the true strength is, over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this tank back in and actually install it now. Let's talk about real quick stainless steel screws, because this is the point of the project where we're going to be doing a lot of screwing in, and especially getting the flooring installed. You got two choices. You can find both of these at your local Home Depot. Spax has a stainless steel deck screw, 1 5/8", 1 5/8". So you look here, this is really where it counts. You got a 305 stainless, and then you have 304. If you're going to be using something to hold weight, like this fuel tank, probably use 305. It'll be a little bit stronger, less, I believe it's less chrome and less aluminum in it, and it's the way to go. And then you've got these 1 5/8 too. And I'll tell you what, if you stick a magnet to it, they don't stick to either one of them. Kind of a cool screw. Anyway, so I'll probably use it for the deck itself when I go to put the flooring down, but for the fuel tank I'll be using the 305 stainless. Definitely if you don't have it already, make sure you get yourself some stainless steel screws. Don't go cheap and put just regular exterior coated whatever steel screws. You'll regret it. Keep in mind, like I talked earlier, when you're rebuilding your boat, if you have stainless steel stuff, keep that around in the boat. Keep it accessible, and all your steel products, don't even bring it in the boat, because I tell you, when you're in a pinch, you're going to be tempted to go grab that steel screw and put it in there, because it's going under the floor, no one will ever see it anyway. Yeah, just don't do it. It's not a good habit. People who built this boat, they use steel quite often, and it drives me nuts because it always rusts, and it makes removing it, if you ever have to later on, impossible. So don't even think about it. Just get yourself some stainless steel. They got a lot of it. It's not too much expensive compared to the steel products. So anyway, enough about that. Just go get stainless steel stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put this fuel tank in. We'll go ahead and install it, and we'll be that much closer to putting the flooring in. Okay, so we got it installed. We got our 305 stainless steel screws installed over here. This is a new box that I got, and they are a little bit different design. I noticed the head on these are a little bit thicker compared to the 305 stainless that I had, and they're a little bit older screws. These are actually, if you look at the difference here, it's a little bit shinier compared to this one. So it may be this exterior brand of screws, they went to a little bit different design. I don't know, kind of different, but they look a little bit stronger compared to the original ones that I used. But yeah, they're all installed. So I feel pretty confident now when we go to fill this thing full of fuel, it's gonna bounce around like crazy. But I know for one thing, it is gonna be under a floor, not serviceable without cutting the floor out. So I feel a lot more confident now than I did before with those cracked clips, but they're in good shape now. Anyway, what I'm gonna do before I forget, so we try to keep this gas tank clean, is I'm going to go ahead and put the fuel sender here. Go ahead and put that back in. This is the new one that I installed if you watched one of my prior videos. So we'll put this one in and get those screws sealed up. Okay, so this is pretty much going to conclude it from here. And the reason being is the next big step is going to be the flooring episode. And when we do the flooring episode, we are going to talk about where to put this in relationship to all these little openings here. Okay, so we'll get more into that. And then in terms of the hoses and everything, we've made the access ports for it. And you'll see with our access hole here, which will probably be more like about right there, you'll have enough room to get the hoses fed in here, and then you'll be able to go and turn them and start sliding them into place. Alright, so that is pretty much going to be it for this episode. If you'd like, just so you don't have any kind of paranoia as to if your hose will bend correctly, you could grab your hose ahead of time and just make sure the one that you're going to use and stick it through the hole here and actually do a bend, and just imagine yourself trying to get underneath the floor to bend it and put it into place. And what I'll do real quick for you is kind of show you, since I do have the hose, let's go ahead and do that real quick so you can kind of have an idea what that looks like. Okay. And this is what we would call like the go no-go test, because obviously you want to make sure that you left enough turn here so you can get this through. It's going to be kind of difficult when you have the floor installed, so I mean technically you could install this now and then bolt everything up while you have plenty of access to it. The trick to doing that, and the problem with doing that as well, is you still have to glass over the top and make this nice little bend here, and you'll be putting some Kevlar in this place. You're going to be running some screws in here, and then you also need to finish off the bottom with some Kevlar. And what that's going to do here is it's going to put, you're going to have the opportunity of getting this coated with epoxy, or if you're using polyester resin. And this fuel hose more than likely isn't going to like that. So something to consider here. Probably want to do it afterwards. There are some pros and cons to it, obviously. One being, like I said, you have easy access to do it now, but to try to keep all this clean, you'd have to wrap it up in a bag and constantly be moving it around, because you also need to install the motor as well, so you'll have to work around all these hoses while the motor's in place. So kind of tedious to have to do that. So I recommend not having it installed, and then once you get the floor in and you get the access panel put in, then move forward with doing it. If anything, like I said, when it's up high enough like this, you'll be able to work with it. Shouldn't be any kind of issues there. So anyway, that will do it for this episode. We've got our 5/8 vent line, fuel rated. We've got our, I believe, 1.5" fire and fuel rated marine grade fill hose installed. Everything looks good. I've got the hose for our fuel inlet. We'll install that later as well. But that's going to be pretty much it for this episode. As always, smash that like button if you thought the video was helpful. Leave some comments, you got some questions. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more episodes. And what we'll do next is we'll start putting on the flooring. So hopefully we see you again here in the next episode. As always, have a good one.